This is Franchise Today, brought to you by FRM Solutions, providers of the best-in-class software solutions for franchise relationship management. Franchise Today is your destination for weekly information, conversations, and interviews with accomplished industry leaders, all of whom share best practices for sustainable growth and sensible franchising. Here now, your host, Stan Friedman, to kick off this week's podcast.
Today is Wednesday, January 22nd, 2025. I'm Stan Friedman, and this is Franchise Today. Well, America, a new page is ready to be written. The second Trump administration is underway, and like it or not, change is certain. But only time will tell the outcome. The shift in energy, though, is already palpable. Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, even Bill Gates have all been to Mar-a-Lago in advance of the inauguration, and Elon Musk is all but living there. Politics aside, I can tell you that every C-suite I've checked in with over the holidays and since is excited about hitting the gas in 2025 with a backlog of Q4 24 candidates that put themselves on hold pending the outcome of the elections. If only a percentage of those re-emerge, along with the new flock of prospects one might expect for Q1 of 25, it ought to be a historic kickoff to the new year for franchise development. We'll just have to wait and see, won't we? The IFA convention is just around the corner, depending upon when you listen to this, today being January 22nd, the day this episode dropped, which would put us less than 3 weeks out from the opening session on February 10th. I can't wait. Can't wait, too, to thank PuroClean President and COO Steve White for all that he shared with us here last week. If you've not grabbed that interview yet, be certain to do so. You don't want to miss it. Lots of take-home value from a guy who knows only one way to get things done, and that's by fostering win-win relationships. That's the right way, the Steve White way. Thanks again, Steve, for all that you do. Today we hear from another member of the People First tribe when I introduce you to Nick Lopez, founder and steward of Lyme Painting, a guy who has wisdom beyond his millennial years. My belief is that this young man will do more than just impress you, but you'll be the judge of that after you've heard his interview. Before I bring him on, a quick reminder that we've moved from Blog Talk Radio and that our new home for hosting of the podcast is at Spotify. That means you can log in there to stream or download up to 600 plus episodes over 15 years or more, beginning with those early episodes that were done live, hosted by Franchise Today founder Paul Segreto, or later episodes that included Paul with Joe Caruso, Franchise King Joe LaBava, or Deb Evans. All of which came before Paul and I tagged up in 2013, doing the show as a tag team for a number of years preceding the current format. Lots of water under those bridges and some great and compelling stories told. So, whether you pick them up at Spotify or virtually anywhere else you go to grab your podcasts, drop me a line, leave a review, make guest suggestions at www.franchisetodaypodcast.com or anywhere else you go. Remember, you can even ask Siri, Alexa, or Google to play the latest episodes, and bam, there you go. Okay, so enough with the housekeeping. It's time to pay some bills with a quick commercial break, and I'll be back in 2 minutes or less with Nick Lopez, founder and steward of Lyme Painting. Stay right there.
Franchise Today will be right back, but first, a word from our sponsors.
Franchise Today is brought to you by Profit Keeper, the #1 franchise analytics platform for franchisors and franchisees. Trusted by more than 150 brands and 50,000 franchisees, Profit Keeper connects KPI, benchmark, and royalty data from your locations, groups, and territories. With Profit Keeper, you see stats in real time, presented simply and graphically. This makes it easy to identify actionable information for franchisees to help them drive profitability and brand growth at the unit level. No more wrangling data and guessing what works and what doesn't. To learn more and to get started, visit profitkeeper.com/franchise today. Nick Lopez left Colorado as a wide-eyed first-generation college student to work on a BS in business marketing at Michigan State. His plan was to walk on to the wrestling team, which would ultimately pay for the cost of tuition and living. The reality was that a scholarship was a couple of years away. So Nick made the tough decision to hang up his boots for an entrepreneurial endeavor to support the cost of his education. At the age of 19, Nick founded his painting company, and every summer thereafter he painted homes to help pay for his tuition, books, and cost of living. By doing so, Nick developed a real passion and love for the craft of home improvement. In his third year as the owner of the company, the light bulb went off, and he realized that these years of painting didn't have to be his last, and a future in the home improvement industry he had grown to love made sense. From that point forward, Nick focused himself on building a business that would set the standard for excellence in painting and home improvement. Here today to tell us all about it, Nick Lopez. Nick Lopez, welcome to Franchise Today.
Thanks for having me on.
I'm delighted to make your acquaintance, Nick. I'm hoping you're going to be at the IFA convention because I know I'm going to want to meet you. But I marvel at, as we were talking just before we began recording today, that you have been in this business for as long as you have. You're an IFA member. You're connected to 1,000 of the same people I am. And in this small insular world of franchising, I stand in awe that we haven't met each other before.
I have heard of you, and so I am equally humbled, and I'm glad that we're meeting.
I'm glad to. And after reading your profile on LinkedIn, I'm really glad to get to know you, and I want to learn more about you. And so why don't we begin today by doing what I do every week, and that's asking my guest to roll back the tape and tell us how franchising found you. When was it? What were you doing before?
I would love to. And yeah, Stan, thanks again for having me on. Truly am humbled. And yeah, rolling it back. My goodness, I certainly didn't grow up anticipating that I would be in franchising, but like so many folks, it found me. And for me, I was handed a book called E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber. As it's done for so many folks, that book changed my life. It opened my eyes to the franchise model. And I was in college at the time working on my undergrad at Michigan State. I was a marketing and sales major, but I was running a painting company to pay my way through college. I was an out-of-state student from Denver. First generation, pretty much just took out credit cards, $500 credit card to get my flight out to East Lansing. And shortly after, a couple other credit cards, right, maxed those out. And I had plans to wrestle in college and that pay my way through scholarship, but that was out a ways. So I started a painting business. And I looked at the bigger the home, the bigger the college bills it would help me pay. Right? That was my logic. And this was back in, love that we're rolling the tape back here, but this was back in 2008. I was 18 at the time, 0 years experience.
Not the best time to start a business either in 08.
Not. And in Detroit, if you remember, a lot of the auto industry and Michigan as a whole is really driven by the auto industry. And that was really at the core of that recession. Interesting timing, but you know, when you're young and hungry, that's a dangerous combination. You don't really think beyond what needs to be done next. And for me, what needed to be done is I had to get to work to pay for school because the wrestling scholarship was a ways out. So that was really tough, making that pivot. But little did I know I would stumble on a need in the luxury sector. And so as I got into my marketing degree, I started learning more about positioning. And, you know, if you're high price, high quality, that's your lane. That's where you stay. And I was thinking about my experience in the market and, you know, these big homes, these custom homes I was working on there in the East Lansing market, they really struggled to find a reliable and consistent solution, especially the way that they purchased everything. They paid more for their car to get more, much like the home, the custom home, you know, all the way down to the restaurant that they ate with, you know, the past weekend with friends. They're used to paying more to get more. But in contracting, they really struggled to find that. And being 18 and new to the business world, I just kind of figured, hey, if you pay for something, you get it. But these clients kept telling me things like, hey, Nick, are you going to run off with my deposit? Are you going to charge me more when you start the job? Are you going to go to another job and leave mine and job hop? And just thinking, wow, that's interesting. No, but that was their experience in the market. There was clearly a lack of trust. And so I'd hear these objections early on. And on the back end, I was hearing, thanks for showing up. Thanks for answering your phone. Thanks for doing a good job. The barriers to entry were clearly pretty low. And so as I'm hearing my professor speak, I'm just drawing on that experience. And, I had heard another term in another class, the light bulbs just going on in these classrooms, if you will, but it was competitive advantage. And clearly I was seeing the barriers to entry, and just doing nominal things was really satisfying clients. And now I'm getting into marketing and learning about positioning and segments in the market. And one of my favorite examples of a market maturing is the quick service restaurants, right? And really the restaurants as a whole, but they were all diners and mom and pops. They were locally owned. And, obviously franchising had a big part of standardizing national solutions. And that's all within that industry. And over time, there's more segmenting within the restaurant industry, more high-end restaurants. Initially, really general service providers. But like most industries, you start getting segmentation over time and positioning. And so as I'm learning about all of this, I was curious about who nationally was focused on this high-end homeowner. Because I was 18, 19 at the time, winning business and was being compared to national options and local options. And so I was curious, okay, who is focused on this sector? Because I'm doing this as a side hustle. And I'm winning business here.
Right.
And when I looked into national options, nobody was doing it. And so I talked to a mentor. He gave me the book, E-Myth Revisited. He said, Nick, you should check out this book. And, I grew up a gym rat, loved playing sports, obviously wrestled my freshman year at Michigan State. One of my favorite things about athletics growing up was the locker room and the locker room culture. And you're preparing for the season and you're setting goals at the beginning of the season and you're working to accomplish those goals with your team. And, that comes with lessons and victories and everything in between, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, but you wear the same colors. And I just loved that part of being on a team and playing sports. Big reason why I enjoyed sales and wanted to pursue entrepreneurship. And so when I learned about franchising and this whole idea of being in business for yourself, but not by yourself, and growing enterprise value together as a franchisor and franchise partners, that to me, I'd never heard of a model like that. Clearly, franchising is very unique. And when I learned about it, when I read E-Myth, I just knew it was for me. That I was probably back in 2010, a couple years in. I was on the 5-year plan. If we're rolling it back, if you take 12 credits instead of 15, it's a little bit cheaper. So about 2 years in. And so I spent the remaining 3 years of my undergrad really just learning from my professors, systematizing the business the way that Michael Gerber talks about, right? Creating systems and process and roles in a way where you can duplicate a service. For me, a service, right? Could be a product, and doing it in a way where you're working on the business. That was the backdrop. And I often call this time the laboratory, where I understood that, time is on my side. If I really lean in here and am intentional about creating a scalable franchise model, I can get feedback from professors and customers and painters and, all while being at a university. And so that's what I did. And my gosh, I certainly didn't expect to be scaling a painting company and, really defining that positioning, not just in the paint space, but home improvement as a whole, from a customer experience point of view. That's what we're really excited about doing, defining the luxury sector in home improvement. And that goes all the way back to those days in a marketing class. And my gosh, thanks for asking me to roll it back. But really it was that mentor who just so graciously gave me his time and kind of heard me out and gave me that book recommendation.
Well, we'll talk some more about that when we're done with the interview, because Michael E. Gerber is a personal friend of mine and might just become a personal friend of yours should I introduce him to you. Tell me first about Limelight. And, well, not even Limelight. Tell me first about Lyme, period. What's the story behind the name?
Great question. And my goodness, yeah, Michael Gerber, I'm not even sure he's familiar with how many folks he's inspired. And
did you attend the IFA convention when we were in San Diego a few years ago?
I did.
Had you come by my booth, Gerber was sitting there signing books. He autographed books.
You're right.
He was in my booth.
I remember that. He was on the floor. Yep. That was pretty exciting.
Yes, he was with me for FRM Solutions, who sponsors my podcast along with my good friends at Profit Keeper. But tell me about the name. The name is intriguing me. Is it because green, money? I don't know. That's the only thing I could come up with. What's the real story?
Well, coincidentally, yes, money is green. But probably my favorite thing about the color green, specifically Lyme, is every time I see it, it puts a smile on my face. That's probably my favorite part of our name. But, the name is really going back to my marketing degree. I was sitting in a subdivision and I was looking down a couple streets and just thinking about all the customers we had worked with, but yet nobody knew. And I thought if we had one, even if we were purple, folks would know all of the neighbors that we had worked with over the years. And being that I went to Michigan State, green, Lyme, most eye-catching Lyme painting, but that eventually became our core values, which Lyme stands for love, integrity, mission, and excellence. We're very much a values-based company. I know you asked about Limelight. The M, the mission, that is utilizing our business as a platform to do good, to give back, and to build a team that does business in that posture, right? And so by defining our values, so our larger values, get Lymed, gratitude, enthusiasm, tenacity, love, integrity, mission, excellence, and discipline. By defining those values, when folks join our organization, or as we call it, our Lyme fam, or the Lyme fam, they know that they are uniting, yes, under our differentiator in the market, under what we're doing within the home improvement sector, right? We're united there, but also in the way that we interact and serve folks within our organization, within our communities. There are so many people that we impact and interact with. And so our values are the way in which we are united and committed to doing business. And so the M, our mission, Limelight Outreach, is a public nonprofit. That's really the national nonprofit. But on a local level, through the Limelight brand, through the Lyme brand, we partner with local nonprofits specifically that work with the youth. And we have 4 pillars of knowledge: faith, family, patriotism, and knowledge. And so anything that falls in those pillars, we want to partner with local nonprofits and do that through Limelight Outreach. Every year we have an annual event. It's in Denver, and it's become a golf outing. And this year will be our 5th annual Limelight event. We'll feature a local nonprofit. We've had some wonderful organizations that we've been able to spotlight and raise a lot of money for. Yeah, it's a little bit about our name, our values. It's a combination of the branding. We always joke that you can see our job sites from space, right? So that there's the branding component and then the values.
Well, you mentioned when we started here, you talked a little bit about franchising and how you're in business for yourself and not by yourself. Another great one-line statement that I think you've just articulated is what I like to call doing well by doing good. A business like yours that's so attached to the community, we should not be ashamed of ourselves for doing well. But if we do well by doing good, it's that much stronger. And that's what I hear coming from you.
It's focused on the person and the people.
Well, when you're all in people first, you're on the right track, especially in this world of franchising. I'll tell you what, let's do. Why don't we grab a quick break right here, Nick? And on the other side of the break, I want to talk about how you got to 100 plus and where it is you're going and how you're getting there. We're talking today with Nick Lopez, a certified franchise executive and founder, and not CEO, but founder and steward of Lyme Painting franchise and the president of Limelight Outreach. And we're going to come right back after a quick time out, so don't you go anywhere.
Franchise Today will be right back, but first, a word from our sponsors.
Franchise Today is brought to you by FRM Solutions, offering the only CRM tool built exclusively for franchising that lets you have it your way. Whether you're a single brand needing professional tools across departments or a portfolio of brands needing franchise-specific CRM across the enterprise. Either way, FRM satisfies the needs of many with the power of one. That's right, one single instance of FRM is all it takes across departments or across brands. So if you've had it with inflexible, one-size-fits-all CRM, end your frustration today. FRM offers robust dashboarding, tailored reporting, and with open APIs, FRM pushes, pulls, and integrates with other databases, providing you with a single source of truth. Don't just take my word for it. Visit them at frmsolutions.com and order up a demo today. And we're back with Nick Lopez, founder and steward of Lyme Painting franchise. What's the story behind steward, Nick? What made you draw that word into your title as opposed to, say, founder and CEO, which most franchisors would claim?
Great question and very observant. But for me, steward, Lyme is not my business. So, sure, I wear the title founder and am, 100% owner of Lyme currently, but it is not my business. And what I mean by that is I consecrated the business to my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, from really since day one, much like I have my entire life. So I have a very interesting story, but I am not where I am at without my relationship with Jesus Christ. So, a part of being a Christian is consecrating your life and really the things in your life to something higher than yourself. And so that is just the posture that I live my life. I serve, something beyond myself. And part of that is consecrating my business and my work to why I believe I am here on earth, which is to serve people and to show them a little bit of Christ. And if you know anything about Christ, he is good. And if there's anything we need now, and frankly, in really any period, we all need more good. So, when I talk about steward, or when you ask me about that title, yes, I wear the founder hat, the president hat, but I am also the steward of Lyme Painting.
When I was a franchisor, on Discovery Day, I would explain to my candidates that the role of the franchisor is to be the steward of the resources. The role of the franchisee is to put their head down and go, follow the plan, do and execute against the ops manual, but my job was to make available everything and anything within my reach while your head's down doing it. We're heads up looking over the next mountaintops. It's what's coming next, what's down the road, and making certain that we were harvesting the resources that were necessary. And it was our job to be the steward of those resources and have available to you all the things that you needed along the way. So it caught my eye when I saw that on LinkedIn.
Yeah, and that's a great way of putting it, Stan, right? And I believe that what I have in my life is given to me by a higher being, which for me is my Savior, Jesus Christ. And in saying that, right, the business is not because of me. It's not mine. And so I am merely stewarding the responsibility. And that's an amazing calling. It is certainly just as much mental, physical, emotional. For me, it is spiritual as well. If you can't tell, definitely am somebody who is obsessed, and talk about Lyme. It is beyond just a job for me. It's really a lifestyle, or as we call it at Lyme, it's the Lyme life. But in being an owner, a franchise owner, and being an entrepreneur, that is what the top performing business professionals are doing, right? It is a lifestyle. And so building that culture, creating that culture, establishing that leadership style across our owners and the leaders that they work with, right? While leaning on our values, that's how we show up. And then, we're just an old school company, right? It's not anything complex. Is a service, very old school service. We bring a lot of white collar sophistication, of course, and we focus on a specific niche, but we're really just the friendly neighborhood painter that is an expert, and we focus on a certain demographic.
So we're at 100 plus units. When did franchising begin?
I started franchising. I joined the IFA. I worked to get my CFE, Certified Franchise Executive designation, before I launched the franchise. And that was really 16, 17, traveling around the country, getting the CFE through the IFA, and then we awarded our first franchise in 19, and we had our initial legacy owners launch together there in 2020. So that was interesting timing.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like you picked some times on the continuum. In 2008, when money was tough, you start your business, and in 2020, you begin franchising the year the COVID said hello. So yeah,
right.
You're picking your battles well, aren't you? So how do we go about franchising? Are we single unit operators? Are we multi-unit? Are we working with brokers or franchise sales organizations? Or how are you going about going to market to scale?
Yeah, I partnered with a franchise sales organization. I was their first brand called the Repum Group. They are a world-class organization. I was very grateful for my partnership with them. And they really helped build the infrastructure for expansion. And we specifically work with brokers and franchise consultants for the most part. We worked with an FSO, our first 65 territories, which I absolutely loved. And that is an entirely different process than the paint world, right? And through their leadership, we were able to build infrastructure that would catapult us into our expansion. But in terms of business models, we are an owner-operator model as well as a semi-absentee model. We look at semi-absentee as being a team builder model. I'm not sure what definition or whose definition of semi-absentee, but at the end of the day, you must scale with people. And we don't have a complicated org chart. We have a general manager, a sales team lead, and an entry-level sales rep, as well as a quality control role, our production coordinator. So we're really hiring for two roles, sales and production, and then you'll have a GM as well. We have some more sophisticated models for empire builders where you would have a district manager in addition to a general manager. That district manager oversees multiple managers that oversee multiple territories. And you obviously need to have the ability from a business skill set perspective, but then that's also a higher investment, longer development schedule. Yeah, so we are partnering with folks that have a desire to be in business for themselves, and they might want to keep a job or do other things in addition to this business. Well, if that's the case, then you need a general manager. If you have desires to scale much larger, you would have an additional layer of support through your executive level support that supports your general manager.
Got it. How many are sold and not opened?
So we're coming up on awarding 120 territories. We have somewhere in the 70s that are currently operating. Yeah, and we really started scaling. I mentioned we worked with Repum, our first 65 territories, and are coming up on 120, but we had 7 territories in August of 2020. We had our legacy owners, those first 7, right, launching in 2020, came on board in 18, 19 timeframes. And so we tripled our locations from 7 to 20, really in Q4 there of 2020, and have been progressively growing over the past, few years or so. But yeah, currently operating 70-something territories.
How many will you open this year?
We have a handful of owners currently slated that are working on going through their grand opening checklist and working with our support team. We have a business coach, a success coach. We have a director of residential and a director of commercial support in their teams as well. But yeah, our team is incredible. They are working, obviously, in addition with myself. I really settle into the vision and the strategy. I've been doing this for almost 20 years now, our luxury customers. So I love to just tune in and follow along in their journey. Obviously, we've mapped out our support structure and what it looks like for them to scale and become a mature location year 3, 4, 5. And so I'm just keeping a pulse throughout and working with our team in helping them launch and become a franchise partner here at Lyme. But yeah, we are currently working on launching a handful, but this is a growth year for us.
Well, what do you see in the post-COVID world that's a wake-up call from prior to? Anything in your business that has radically or dramatically changed post-COVID?
Post-COVID, I would say that I have really appreciated the growth in the home improvement sector. Seeing how far home improvement has come within franchising, specifically since 2020, it's been really exciting to be a part of and to play a small role in. That has, for me, been, as you mentioned, something that stands out.
For sure. What do you see coming down the pike in the next 1 to 3 or even 5 years, if you can see that far ahead, Nick?
Oh my gosh. I think there's a lot to be excited about. You look at some of the industry reports, not just in franchising, but in home improvement and painting. 2025 is a year where home improvement really gets wind in its sales. And I don't see that growth stopping over the foreseeable. Time happens so fast these days and things happen so fast. And I've been in a leadership role through so much change, going all the way back to '08, that it's hard for me to predict beyond a year or two. But my goodness, we actually coined this year growth mindset because we look at 2025 as a growth year. We've done some deep planning to create that, but also just capitalizing on where things are at as a marketplace and being reactive. And so that's obviously an exciting place to be.
No doubt.
Yeah. Going through COVID, and then in paint, we also went through low coatings and paint. Could you believe that global paint suppliers were running out of paint? Unbelievable. So not only were we dealing with COVID, we were dealing with these incredible supply chain challenges, all the social unrest. It has been, you just throw that word COVID, it creates, that paradigm of leading and building, really despite what's going on around. And I think that's just the fortunate reality of the space we're in, the paint space. I mean, it's a massive industry and it's a need. And I've just tried to show up and be better for the customer. And the customer and the market are always evolving. So, just being that friendly neighborhood painter that's an expert.
Well, we're coming around to the final turn here. Nick, before we get there, though, is there anything, before I ask you for contact info, is there anything I haven't asked today that you wished I would have?
I would say just the why, right? My personal why. I am very much a values-based person. And so my personal F's are faith, family, friends, and franchising. And they're in that order. But my goodness, when I'm franchising, I'm absolutely obsessed. I love it. Recently, I've added a couple more F's to my list of F's here, and that is fun and finances. Throughout my 20s, I took a lot of pride knowing that I didn't take a Saturday off. And prior to really scaling in 2020, my word for the year was patience for 4 years. So when you mention the word fun and me just adding it, it's been nice to have a little bit of fun as well, Stan.
Amen. How about some contact info for the audience that's going to want to get back in touch with you for sure?
You can reach out. My email is nick@lymepainting.com. You can search Lyme Painting, find us lymepainting.com. The franchise, lymepaintingfranchise.com. But my platform is LinkedIn. You can find me there. I would love to connect.
It's been a real treat getting to know you today, Nick. And more than ever, I'm looking forward with anticipation meeting you in Las Vegas at the IFA convention, where I'll be with my son, as a matter of fact, who's part of my business world now, too. So I'll introduce you to a pair of Friedmans. What do you say?
Let's do it.
All right. Thanks for being here, Nick.
Get limed.
Well, that's a wrap for today. Next week, part 1 of a 2-part interview with Greg George, franchise founder and CEO of the Peach Cobbler Factory, a pretty successful franchise executive, but moreover, an amazing warrior with a riveting story. Until then, I'm Stan Friedman, wishing you the best, the very best of all things franchising, and Franchise Today is out.
Franchise Today is a production of FRM Solutions, providing best-in-class CRM tools to empower relationships with prospective and existing franchisees. Find them online at frmsolutions.com. Join Stan every Wednesday at noon Eastern for another episode of Franchise Today.